Brady Quinn. Brady's on the call with Joe Davis. Bruce Feldman on the sidelines. It's USC versus Stanford Saturday, 8:30 Eastern on Fox. Brady joins us this morning from Palo Alto. Good morning, Brady. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dan. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. I got a stat for you. It's a Brady Quinn stat.
Okay.
Did you know
I love it.
You're the only Notre Dame quarterback in school history to go 4-0 against Stanford and 0-4 against USC?
Yeah, the state of California is interesting like that, right? Like I much prefer NorCal to SoCal. So I think that has something a little bit to do with it. I'm a little more of a wine drinker, less of a beach guy. So maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not sure.
How often are you asked about Notre Dame USC?
I was asked about it this past week because of the Notre Dame Michigan rivalry, and which ones you kind of prioritize, or which ones you think is the biggest in your mind as a player. And so you get asked about it a fair amount. I mean, I think that the biggest difference, between USC then and now is just, the recruiting classes are about as good, but not quite to the extent of what they were then. I mean, they were getting everyone. And those teams, when you look at where those guys were drafted and all the talent they had on those teams, incredibly different time, different era.
And also Stanford as well. That was a different feel. Like Harbaugh came in and changed the whole culture at Stanford. Right.
Like now the exotic style of play is bringing in extra tight ends and linemen to run the football in college football, and he was kind of one of the guys to do that. I think he also recruited well, though. I mean, look at the quarterbacks they were able to get at that point in time. Not that Stanford didn't before either. I mean, they had some highly ranked quarterbacks coming out of high school. I just think Harbaugh was able to find a way of making what they could recruit around the quarterback work with the system.
Are we being too harsh on Michigan and Harbaugh that they can't win on the road? They don't beat ranked opponents on the road. They're not beating the best teams in the Big Ten. Or should we be taking the magnifying glass to Jim Harbaugh?
Well, I think we should be, especially at this point, considering how long he's been there. But I still think you're asking a lot of any team. I don't care at what level. When you've got two new offensive coordinators to come in, and Ed Warner, Jim McElwain, a graduate transfer who comes in and basically had the summertime to be able to figure this offense out, and then asking them to go win a road game versus a really good opponent in Notre Dame to start the season. Like, it's just a lot to ask. And they lost by a touchdown. I think they'll get better as the season goes along. And they could still win the Big Ten. And they could still go potentially to the college football playoff if indeed they do that. So, I know everyone's kind of saying the sky is falling there, but I don't think that's the case. It's too talented of a team. I think they'll eventually figure it out.
You bring up a great point. You have new coordinators and offensive-minded people in there. And I had a college assistant coach tell me from a different school, too many cooks in there. That because I said, how would you look at Notre Dame, Michigan? And he said, from afar, I would say too many cooks in there as far as trying to make the recipe on offense. And that's a recipe for disaster.
Sometimes that can be the case, right? It's kind of like a two-quarterback system. I don't really know anyone who can make that work. And maybe that's the case, too, with play calling. It seems like that eventually comes to an end. Even at TCU, for example, Sonny Cumbie, Doug Meacham, they kind of had a nice run there with Gary Patterson for a while, but eventually there was a breakup. So it seems like it's just hard to make it work because it's such a ego-driven and ultimately I think, when you're put in a position where one way or another, you're either going to get the praise or the blame, you'd like it all to be on you and not have to split it with someone else, and then that's where you start pointing fingers. So I think that's the other reason why it really comes down to, always better really having one guy, one voice that's saying everything and calling the play and making the decision.
Number 17, USC. What jumped out at you after their first win against UNLV?
Just the poise of their freshman quarterback. I mean, how a young man can step on a stage like that, perform the way he did, and be so poised and kind of almost be not a replica of Sam Darnold, but very similar in the sense of similar release. He's accurate quarterback, he's got a quick release. He's shifty enough, not as good as a runner, but just the poise that he showed and not really panicking when they kind of struggled a little bit early on versus UNLV.
What about Stanford? What stood out in their opener?
And the fact that Bryce Love struggled to run the football.
Yeah.
He's a Heisman candidate. You're kind of expecting to have one of these big performances to jump on the scene at the beginning of the year, and didn't happen. and it ended up being the passing game. KJ Costello and Arcega-Whiteside connecting for 3 touchdowns, helped open things up, and they're probably going to have to do that the rest of the year to prove to teams that they can throw the football, and you can't just load up the box to stop Bryce Love.
Talking to Brady Quinn, he's got USC and Stanford coming up Saturday night at 8:30 Eastern on Fox. You talked about the poise of JT Daniels and the number of freshmen who are coming in now, and they're ready to play now. And this goes back to high school, grade school. It's like there's this like a laboratory, Brady, that we're teaching these kids of what to understand about the game, and they're ready to go. They're running their own offense in high school here. Like, how surprising is it that you're seeing this many freshman quarterbacks contribute?
It's a bit surprising, but it speaks to, I think, the game of football, how big it is, and then how big the most important position is in the game of football. And it speaks to all the coaches out there who are working with them, whether it's the high school coach or these quarterback gurus. Either way, they're preparing these young men for the moment, and they come in technically more ready than ever before. They have a better football IQ as far as what to expect. And I think it's a good thing for the game of football, especially at the highest level, right? Because we want these guys coming in, understanding the game and the different nuances, so we can replace the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers, the Drew Brees of the world at some point. So I think it's a great thing for college football. And look, I love the game. I think all these guys who play the quarterback position end up becoming leaders in something else eventually. Whenever the game stops for them, they'll end up, one day, leading a company or becoming a CEO. And I always think the lessons these guys are coming in with, how much maturity they can show at a young age, is pretty impressive.
But I'm also hearing you got kids who are 6 and 7 years of age where dad is sending their tapes to guys to analyze what their kids are doing at 5 and 6, Brady.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part. Sounds like the European model, right? My wife was an Olympic gymnast, so back in 2008, she's competing for our country over in Beijing. And if you want to know when they ended up figuring out whether or not she could, do gymnastics, her coach selected her around 5 years old, 6 years old. I mean, at that point in time, he knew, he saw something in her. He thought it was worth his time to invest with her, and she could eventually make it to the Olympics. So, I'm not sure whether it's right or wrong. I do know it's something that it's becoming more prevalent than before. And I think over time, as long as the parents are able to find that balance, I think it can be a good thing. I really do.
I didn't know your wife was an Olympic gymnast.
Really? Come on, DP.
I don't think so. Did she ever go to party and do handstands or backflip and things like that?
Oh, here we go. Yeah, there's a YouTube video. Look it up. She knocked some guy out. He was so inebriated at that point. You could have pushed him with your pinky finger. He would have fell over. But yeah, check that out on YouTube. She's got a nice left hook.
Do you guys have that?
We sure did. We did not know who his wife was, and now we put 2 and 2 together. We've seen this video before. She knocked some guy what out.
Is she proud of this video, Brady?
Yeah, she'll try to act like she's not, but she's from Boston, so of course, she's Irish and Italian. So there you go.
Oh, I know that combination quite well. The sneaky Heisman sleeper. Who would be your sneaky Heisman candidate?
We're already a week in. I wish you would have asked me this, 10 days ago. I would have said Will Greer maybe, because I don't know that he gets
No, that's not a sleeper.
Yeah.
Who do you got?
It's tough because you've got to pick someone who, maybe you haven't, maybe we didn't hear and wasn't able to build enough equity last year, right? I always look at the Heisman races as it's hard, I think, to win with no one knows who you are coming into the season. Like, you can have a great year, but you've got to have a little bit of hype, a little bit of equity. You got to be a top recruit or something else. Trying to think. You know who I really like? I don't think he gets enough attention. I don't know that he will, but a sleeper is Justice Hill, running back for Oklahoma State. He is phenomenal. He might be one of the best running backs all the way around. I mean, catches well, runs well, and really, blocks. Is unselfish, helps out his teammates. But he's a guy that should get more credit for, more hype, and maybe if they're sneaky good in the Big 12, maybe with that offense's production, maybe we do hear more about him.
I still love that story where Barry Switzer told his team not to injure Thurman Thomas at Oklahoma State because Barry Sanders was behind Thurman Thomas, and Barry Switzer knew if you injure Thurman, we have to face Barry. So he told his defense, whatever you do, do not hurt Thurman Thomas. That's how good Barry was.
If I'm not mistaken, Mike Gundy was the quarterback of that team, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Hartley Dykes was on that team too. Does that sound right? Mike
This
Gundy.
is where I get on Liner all the time because I'm like, if I had Reggie Bush and Lindell White, shit. We had a good running back group too, but we always say it's like when I played with the Kansas City Chiefs, I said the best seat in the house was watching Jamal Charles run after he handed the football off. And Jim Zorn, our quarterback coach, used to get on me for not booting away and all that, but it was hard not to stand back and watch. It was just kind of the greatness that they would bring to the position.
But Liner fully acknowledges that he got Reggie Bush pushing him into the end zone in South Bend, right? The Bush push, he acknowledges it now, right?
Yeah, well, they changed the rule now. You can push him and you can't pull him. So now he feels vindicated, like it wasn't illegal. Like it was a crime back then for like insider trading, but it's not now.
He's grandfathered in.
Yeah. He feels completely vindicated by it. So I think since that rule changed, now he feels like he's okay with it.
Have fun this weekend. Thank you, Brady. Tell the boys we said hello and safe travels.
Thank you. I will. Thanks for having me on.
Brady Quinn. Brady with Joe Davis and Bruce Feldman. They've got 8:30 Eastern on Fox, USC versus Stanford.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.